In the grim darkness of Warhammer 40K, the Space Marine is the pinnacle of human evolution. Genetically engineered super soldiers trained and conditioned to know no fear. Yet despite their immense strength and unwavering devotion to the Emperor, even these elite warriors face horrors that would shatter the minds of lesser men. These horrifying stories are a constant reminder that even the most indomitable force is not immune to terror within the universe of Warhammer 40k. And that's what we're going to explore today as we take a look at two different stories of what horrors Space Marines have to go through. Starting off with the creation of a Space Marine. Don't forget to hit the like button if you guys enjoy these creepy stories. But let's get into it. The cavernous chamber of the Apothecarion hummed with a low, oppressive drone of ancient machinery. Brother Lamar, a new recruit to the Emperor's Angels of Death, lay strapped to a slab beneath the dim glow of flickering light. His body trembled with the icy, pervasive grip of terror. Acolytes moved around him, their pale face obscured beneath hooded robes, and the sound of grinding metal and clicking needles echoed off the cold stone walls. He had fought to be here. Of course he had. To serve in the Emperor's most sacred order was an honor beyond comprehension, a path to immortality in his service. But now, staring into the shadowed faces of his captors, he wondered if he had truly understood what he was going to sacrifice. A massive figure loomed over him, Apothecary Vanthus, his bone-white armor stained with the blood of countless surgeries. In one hand, he held the gleaming Narthekium, a tool of healing and horror. In the other, a vial of viscous fluid containing the gene seed, a fragment of the Primarch's own perfection. Lamar's future as an Astarte depended on this. But before the gene seed implantation, there was the indoctrination. Vanthus spoke, his voice like grinding rock.
Prepare the mind.
Two of the acolytes wheeled forward an ancient machine, its brass gears whining in protest as they tried to placate its machine spirit. Long needles tipped with pulsating wires extended from it, each one sparking with malevolent energy. Lamar strained against the restraints, his heart hammering. He had heard rumors of the psycho-indoctrination, how it broke a man's mind and rebuilt it in the Emperor's image. He wasn't sure if his sanity could survive it. Without warning, the needles plunged into his skull. The pain was immediate and all-consuming, a searing fire that flooded his thoughts and wiped away all sense of self. He screamed, but the sound was lost in the roaring tidal wave of agony that tore through his brain. His memories were being peeled away one by one. The smell of his homeworld's burning sand, his mother's voice, his brother's laughter, gone. In their place came visions, images that clawed at the edges of his consciousness, towering spires of Gothic architecture, endless battlefields soaked in the blood of the Xenos and the traitor alike. The Emperor's throne, gleaming with untold radiance. A voice, like the whisper of an ancient god, slithered into his mind.
You are nothing. You are a weapon. You are his will made manifest.
Lamar gasped, his body jerking as the words wormed their way deeper, burrowing into his psyche. His own thoughts struggled to hold on, to resist, but it was useless. The machine's tendrils dug deeper, reprogramming his very soul. He was drowning in the Emperor's vision. His mind was being reshaped, purged of doubt, fear, and individuality. There was no Lamar, only the Emperor. The pain shifted, becoming something colder and more insidious. The machine was implanting new memories, false memories, of countless battles fought in the Emperor's name. He could see himself, but not as he was, a mere initiate, soft and unproven. No, in these visions, he was an Astarte, his power armor gleaming black in the eternal night, his bolter roaring as it cut down swaths of enemies with righteous fury. But something was wrong. Amidst the images of glorious battle, there were other things, dark things, lurking shadows at the edge of his perception. Voices not of the Emperor, but something else, something ancient and malevolent, whispering to him.
You are ours. You are his, but also ours.
Lamar screamed again, but this time it wasn't just the pain. He could feel something foreign moving inside him in the cracks of his reshaped mind. As the machine wired and clicked, it was as if though the shadows themselves had taken root in his soul. The process continued for what felt like an eternity, and then just a sudden stop. The needles retracted, and the machine powered down with a hiss of escaping steam. Lamar's body went limp, his chest heaving as his brain tried to comprehend what had just happened to him. Apothecary Vanthus leaned in close, the cold reflection of his mask the only thing Lamar could see.
The gene seed will finish the transformation. But remember, brother, the psycho-indoctrination is never complete. It is a process. There will be echoes.
Vanthus motioned for the acolytes to bring forth the gene seed implantation device. The fear was still there, gnawing at the edges of Lamar's mind. But now it was joined by something else. A lurking dread, a sense of wrongness deep within his being. He could feel it, something crawling in the recesses of his consciousness, the whisper that didn't stop. As the needles pierced his chest and the gene seed was injected into his body, Lamar's vision swam. His blood boiled as the genetic material fused with his cells, rewriting his biology, turning him into something more than human. But with every surge of power, the voice grew louder.
You are ours. You are his, but also ours.
The darkness at the edges of his mind began to spread like a shadow across his soul. Lamar's heart thundered in his chest as he realized the truth. He had been made a weapon, but something else had taken root in him, something that had slipped through the cracks of the Emperor's sight. He was becoming an Astarte, a mighty warrior of the Imperium, but deep inside, something else was growing alongside the gene seed, and it was hungry. Now let's move on to another homebrew horror story as we take a look at what it's like for a space marine to explore a Spacehulk. Brother Uriel of the Death Watch stood alone in the dimly lit boarding pod as it breached the atmosphere of Gallows Point, a derelict Spacehulk drifting on the edge of the Eye of Terror. He had been sent ahead of his squad to investigate the ship's secrets. None could explain the sudden emergence of this massive vessel. One moment it had not existed, and the next, its twisted, ancient bulk was detected by all Imperial sensors. The High Command feared the corruption of Chaos or the infestation of Xenos. Uriel would find out. The clang of metal against metal echoed as the boarding pod docked with a great shudder, its automated system securing the connection. Uriel's heart was steady, his power armor's vox casting the harsh breath of his helmet into a confined space, almost as if the pod itself had come alive. He had faced death countless times, yet the oppressive silence of this Spacehulk was different, a tangible weight that seemed to creep into the recesses of his mind. With a hiss of pressurized air, the hatch opened, revealing the rusted corridor beyond. Uriel stepped into the blackened, decaying passageway, illuminated only by the flickering glow of the skull-mounted light on his shoulder. The ancient ship was a labyrinth of forgotten wars and a tomb of steel and bone. Its air was thick with the stench of death, but there was something else too, something more insidious, as if the walls themselves were whispering. He switched on his helm's auspex, scanning for signs of life or chaos corruption. The device remained eerily quiet. No power signatures, no life signs, just the endless hum of the void pressing in on him. He moved cautiously, his bolter ready. Around him, the ship's hull groaned, metal contracting in an almost rhythmic pattern. But it wasn't just the ship's age that unnerved him. There were strange symbols carved into the walls, indecipherable runes and sigils. Uriel's blood chilled as he recognized some of the marks as the ruinous powers. The ship had been touched by chaos, and yet there was no life, no demon, no cultist, only death. As he advanced, Uriel found bodies, thousands of them. The crew had been slaughtered violently, their corpses left to rot in the endless maze of corridors. Each face was contorted in terror, their hands gripping weapons as if they had fought something worse than any mortal foe. But there was no signs of what had killed them. He reached the command bridge after what felt like hours of walking. The chamber was vast, dominated by a shattered throne and a massive viewing port that looked out into the abyss of space. The atmosphere here was even heavier, and the air thick with unnatural stillness. Uriel approached the shattered control console, wiping dust from its surface to activate the hololith. Static. He adjusted the controls, cycling through ship logs, trying to access any information about the crew's final moments. Finally, a burst of garbled noises suddenly erupted from the machine, disjointed fragments of screams and pleading voices.
The ship is alive. It hears us. It hungers. Emperor, save us.
The recording cut off. Uriel's gauntleted hand hovered over the device, unease washing over him. The ship was alive. He turned towards the viewport, eyes narrowing. For a moment, the darkness of the void seemed to swirl, as if though something vast and unseen lurked beyond the sight. A low whisper echoed in his helmet. His blood froze. He spun, bolter raised. The bridge was empty. There was nothing there. Yet the voice continued, soft, insidious, crawling into his thoughts like a malignant cancer.
You are not alone.
His auspex flared, detecting something close. He moved towards the source, his steps careful. The weight of his bolter a comfort. The whisper grew louder, more urgent, pulling him deeper into the bowels of the ship. The corridor became narrow, more claustrophobic. The once grand halls of the vessel, now no more than a rusted tunnel. He felt it then, the presence of something ancient, something malevolent. It stalked him in the shadows, watching and waiting. Eventually, Uriel stepped into a vast chamber, a cargo hold, its walls lined with cages and rusted metal, the floor littered with bones. At the far end of the room, something moved, a shadow detached from the darkness itself. Uriel's bolter rose instinctively, but the figure did not attack. It was a space marine, or at least it had been. The armor was ancient, its sigils long faded and covered in grime. The figure stood motionless, staring at Uriel as if daring him to speak.
You should not have come.
The voice whispered again, though this time it came from the figure itself. Uriel tightened his grip on his weapon.
Speak your name.
The dead space marine tilted its head slightly, as if in mocking contemplation.
I am what remains of those who have sought the secrets of this ship. You will join us.
With a sickening crack, the figure's body twisted, limbs snapping in unnatural angles, the bone of its skull contorting into a horrific mockery of life. Uriel fired his bolter, rounds tearing through the thing, but it didn't fall. It only laughed, a terrible, hollowed sound that echoed through the chamber. Around him, the walls of the ship groaned, shifting, and the very metal bending and warping as if the Spacehulk itself was alive. The bones on the floor stirred, rattling as if in response to some unseen call. Uriel fired again, but the shot was swallowed by the darkness. The ship was awakening. Uriel turned and ran, the footsteps thundering through the decaying corridors, the whispers growing louder, merging into a cacophony of voices. They spoke of ancient hunger, of endless suffering. They spoke of the ship's desire to consume, to drag the souls of the living into its twisted labyrinthian heart. He reached the boarding pod, sealing himself inside, just as the walls of the hulk began to twist and fold. With a roar, the pod detached, blasting away from the cursed vessel. Uriel watched from the viewport as Gallows Point faded into distance, the whisper still echoing in his mind. He had escaped the ship, but he knew deep in his soul that a part of him had been left behind, swallowed by the darkness. And somewhere in the void, Gallows Point waits for its next victim. The narrative of a Spacehulk is a classic within Warhammer 40K lore. I hope you guys enjoyed these two stories. If you guys want to get more horror stories, we are doing an entire series for the month of October as we get closer to Halloween. Don't forget to hit the like button if you like these videos, share with your friends, let us know what you want to see down in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for listening. This was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Oh, I did the